wanted to ask you, and you and I talked a little bit about this last month, was, everybody says that startups dead, right? That's the big deal right now. Startups taking a halt, it's dead. Nobody's got capital. Woe is me. What do you say to that, man? Is that true?
I mean, I think you just have to have a more articulate conversation. I think that depending on where you're at, um, in the Bay, in the coast, some people really got spoiled in terms of valuations, and people want exits, and there are reasons why that didn't happen. I think if right, and we could have that conversation, but the reality of the situation is I'm not from that world at the end of the day, where like no one's ever you know gave me 10 million pre-seed off an idea. I always had to build something and rub two sticks and start from there. Um, and I could tell you that if you're a builder right now is the time to be alive, especially I think with AI and how you could get to profitability and really have control over your cap table. There's abundance of capital out there. There's websites like openvc.app connecting you to 5,000 investors. So I don't think that is. I think there's too many people giving bad advice. If I'm just being very honest, I think that's probably the issue. Um, you know, raising capital is easy. It's about how big you telling the story of how big the market is. Um, I don't want to say raising capital is easy. But if there's a
Crazy.
blueprint, if there's a blueprint for raising capital, and a lot of this is first time founder issues too, as well. So I think you have to have the humility to, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think, you have to have the humility to get advice. And I've learned in my life, I remember when I was like 19, there was someone in the barbershop that everyone respected. And I was trying to get like a job, and he was getting his hair cut. And like I just kept talking to him, and then like I knew he was getting annoyed. And then so after he got done, he was like, "Yeah, young man, you're a very smart man," but and he like tapped on me. He was like, "Too early for me right now, but I know you're gonna be good." Right. And then I was like, oh, I always remember that. I'm like, man, like how did I, you know? So I think you just have to learn. Like I said, when I was in that, the person buying the company looked at the cap table, saw that I wasn't on it, and kicked me out the room at the end of the day, right? And the founder I was working with really had nothing to do. Now he would 2 years later would come to say, I actually regret that, and I wish I walked away from that deal and just kept building, if anything, because that was a sign. But um, I think you just go through things that, and again, the reason he kicked me out the room, he was like, look, I mean, this person, I mean, he doesn't have stake in it. So why is he's not a lawyer, right? So I think it wasn't, it's just, there are certain, you know, bureaucratic business
Yeah, and there always
situations.
will be. There always will be.
Yeah.
But,
That should be
what,
it. Yeah.
so what I'm hearing you say is, like, if you're a builder, if you're somebody that's willing to get in the trenches and make things happen, it's still a very positive experience coming out of the second half of 24 and probably into the near future. And I think one of the things that you keep reiterating here is the fact that if you surround yourself by people that are smarter than you and you do it right, and you learn and you strategically implement the things that can protect you as you grow, that is the hardest part. Because once you do that, once you've got a valid business and you've got a successful rock star team, to kind of steal from the AMA board here, Mike, I think, that is a real deal. That is what substantiates you in business. And I think you're right. The pulse.
Yeah. I mean, I think like, yeah, just to add on that. I mean, I think you just have to, I'm someone that has faith. So you just have to, if you ask, you have to be willing to ask to receive as well. But on the other thing, I think someone selling to startups, right? If you start a business selling to startups, then like you should sell to venture backed startups, right? Like you should kind of do that. I always, as an agency owner in 2017, if I wanted a client to pay me 100,000 in a year, they probably have to be doing at least 3 million in revenue, right? Or something like that. So I mean, I think you need to know who your customer is, because you really will get exactly what you attract at the end of the day. So I think that's important as well.
Yeah, and I mean that's what creates long-lasting and repeating business. I mean, if you're gonna create a business, it's got to be something that can last. Too many people, I feel, in the past, probably 2 years after 2020, focused on that built to sell mentality, right? That book came to a height at that point. People were getting over valuations. And then it was like, all right, are you here because this is a real business and a real struggle that you're putting a solution out for? Or are you really here built just to sell? Because if it's built just to sell, get out. Like that's what I feel is the negative side of, your world with it, which is tech marketing and venture capital. I think there's a bad taste in the mouth because of that. But I'd love to remind everybody that's here is if you're innovative, and Pierce put this in the chat too, if you're innovative and you're surrounded by rock stars, you have a real valid idea, and it's not just to build something to sell and make an exit. You can spin up in a matter of days. You can get clients in a matter of weeks, and you can start validating a perpetual business by reminding yourself that you don't know it all. You've got a good community, people like
Yeah.
Manny that's got good insights into different markets and regions that are being successful right now, regardless of the whirlwinds of the economy, times, changes in tech, right? I think that's a big deal.